My director thought he executed the perfect crime. He waited until the night before our annual global summit, locked me out of the company servers, and slapped his own name onto my 8 months of market analysis. He thought a manager took credit for my presentation, and that was the end of the story. He was completely wrong. The next morning, I sat in the back row of a packed auditorium. I had to watch him take the stage in front of our entire executive board, grinning like a tech mogul, completely ready for a promotion built entirely on my sweat and tears. He even looked right at me from the podium and smiled, thinking he'd completely gotten away with ruining my career just to fast-track his own. What he didn't know was that I anticipated his greed. Hidden inside slide 14 was an automated, hard-coded hyperlink tied directly to our live, unedited client satisfaction databases. When he clicked to show our flawless metrics, he didn't display a chart. He broadcast his own private, deleted Slack messages insulting the executive board onto the main projector. This is the story of how one corporate karma presentation destroyed a millionaire's career, live, in under 60 seconds. To understand why that trap worked so perfectly, you first need to understand who my director was. His name was Julian Vance. Julian was the kind of corporate climber who survived by managing upward while making life absolutely miserable for everyone beneath him. He couldn't write a database query. He didn't understand customer retention metrics. He certainly couldn't build predictive market models. But what he could do was speak fluent corporate buzzwords that made senior executives nod as if they'd just heard something brilliant. For 8 exhausting months, my team worked 90-hour weeks on a massive digital transformation project for our parent company, Vanguard Logistics. We were responsible for proving exactly why our regional supply chain models were losing millions and how to fix them. I wrote the code. I ran the simulations. I built the forecasting models. Then, I designed a 40-slide executive presentation backed by months of verified data. It was easily the strongest piece of work I'd produced in my career. And whoever presented it was almost guaranteed a promotion to global vice president. The night before the presentation, Julian called me into his office at exactly 8 o'clock. He looked unusually relaxed. Sitting behind his desk with an expensive glass of scotch in his hand, "Leo, drop the master files onto the secure shared drive for me. I just want one last compliance review before tomorrow morning." Outstanding work, truly. I did exactly what he asked, uploaded every file, packed my laptop, went home, and for the first time in weeks, I actually got a full night's sleep. The next morning, just after 6, I logged into the corporate VPN. Instead of my dashboard, a bright red message filled the screen. Access denied. Account suspended by administration. My stomach dropped. I immediately called IT. The technician sounded uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Leo. We're acting on written instructions from Director Julian Vance. Your position is currently under restructuring review." Only a minute later, my personal phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "I'm taking full credit for your presentation, Leo. Don't bother showing up. I've already replaced the files with my own branding. Be a team player." Julian honestly believed that would be enough, that I'd stay home, accept defeat, and quietly start looking for another job. But he'd made one catastrophic mistake. Julian was so technologically incompetent, he never opened the slide master properties. He changed the title page, updated the author name, maybe swapped a few colors, but he never noticed the live architecture hidden underneath. The presentation wasn't just slides, it was connected directly to live company data. So instead of staying home, I put on my best suit, drove to the convention center, walked straight past registration using my backup security badge, and quietly slipped into the last row, just as the lights dimmed. He pressed the clicker button. The screen didn't load a neat, colorful pie chart. Instead, my embedded hyperlink script executed perfectly, hijacking the projector feed to display a live, unedited, scrolling window of Julian's archived, internal corporate messaging logs. I had specifically mapped the script to fetch a hidden database repository where all deleted manager chats were backed up for internal legal compliance. And right there, displayed in massive 40-foot typography on the main auditorium wall, was a chat log between Julian and his regional directors from just 3 weeks prior. The top message read, "The executive board is a collection of clueless, aging dinosaurs. Old man Vanguard hasn't looked at a spreadsheet since 1994. Just cook the regional shipping metrics by 12% to keep them quiet while I use this project to secure my VP title and exit to a competitor." The entire auditorium went dead, completely silent. You could literally hear the low hum of the projector cooling fans echoing in the room. Julian froze. His hand stayed stuck in midair, still holding the presentation clicker. The smug, tan complexion on his face turned to an ash-white, deathly pale mask of pure terror. He hammered the clicker button to change the slide, but the hard-coded script overrode the inputs, locking the text perfectly on the screen for everyone to read. CEO Arthur Vanguard slowly stood up from his front row seat. His face was pure crimson, his jaw completely clenched with an icy, terrifying rage. He looked up at the screen, then turned around to look directly at Julian on the stage. "Is there an explanation for this, Julian?" Vanguard's voice boomed through the microphone system, cutting through the silence like a knife. Julian opened his mouth, but only a hollow, pathetic squeak came out. He couldn't speak. He couldn't lie his way out of his own written digital signature. I slowly stood up from the very back row, walked down the center aisle of the auditorium under the dim walkway lights, and stopped right next to the executive row. I looked directly up at the stage, caught Julian's petrified eyes, and smiled. "The system doesn't lie, Julian," I said loudly enough for the front rows to hear. "But managers certainly do." Julian was escorted out of the convention center by armed building security less than 10 minutes later, completely stripped of his corporate credentials on the spot. His fast-tracked career was systematically eradicated, live, in front of every single industry peer he had ever sought to impress. The following Monday, I was called into the CEO's corner office. I was handed Julian's former director title, a massive 45% salary increase, and full creative ownership over the global rollout of my digital architecture. Julian Vance tried to sue for wrongful termination a month later, but the company legal team countered by releasing his full archive of fraudulent metrics to federal investigators, effectively blacklisting him from ever holding a management position in the corporate tech sector again. He chose to steal my presentation to save his own career, but instead, he walked directly into an absolute, inescapable digital trap.